What if the biggest story in a marriage isn't the explosive fights, but the deafening silence that comes after? Behind the perfectly curated family photos on social media, behind the cheerful holiday cards and the milestone anniversary posts, a different reality is often unfolding. It's a quiet, slow-burning crisis that ends not with a bang, but with a signature on a legal document. A groundbreaking study from Stanford sociologist Michael Rosenfeld uncovered a statistic that should stop everyone in their tracks. A staggering 69% of all divorces are initiated by women. This isn't an anomaly, it's a consistent, powerful trend that has therapists, sociologists, and bewildered husbands asking the same fundamental question: why? The answer is rarely found in a single, dramatic act of betrayal. The truth is far more insidious, a phenomenon that could be called death by a thousand cuts. It's the slow, silent accumulation of small grievances, tiny paper cuts of disappointment, and splinters of resentment that are tolerated for years, even decades. They are the invisible wounds that fester beneath the surface until the weight of them all becomes simply unbearable. This is the story of those thousand cuts, the silent resentments that build a wall brick by brick until the person a woman married is a stranger on the other side and the path back to him has been completely forgotten. It almost always begins in the most mundane corners of life, with something as trivial as a pile of dirty dishes or a perpetually full laundry hamper. On the surface, it's just housework, but in the architecture of a marriage, it's the faulty foundation upon which everything else is built. This is the second shift, a term for the unpaid labor that begins the moment a woman gets home from her paid job. The data is stark. According to the Institute for Women's Policy Research, women who are employed full-time still spend an average of 4.9 hours every single day on unpaid labor. For men, that number is just 3.8 hours. That extra hour a day, 7 days a week, accumulates into a mountain of unseen, unacknowledged work. But the physical labor is only half the story. The more exhausting burden is the mental load, the invisible, relentless job of being the family's project manager. She is the keeper of the family calendar, the one who knows the dog is out of food, that the permission slip for the field trip is due Friday, that his mother's birthday is next week and a gift needs to be bought and sent. She is the one who orchestrates doctor's appointments, plans meals, and anticipates the emotional needs of everyone in the household, becoming the family's de facto therapist and emotional air traffic controller. When her husband says, "You just do it better," it's not heard as a compliment. It is heard as a confession of weaponized incompetence, a subtle but effective way to shrug off responsibility, leaving her to carry the entire load. This isn't a partnership, it's a management position she never applied for, with no salary, no sick days, and absolutely no recognition. And that is where the first, deepest seeds of resentment are planted. This imbalance of labor isn't just about chores. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue of perceived value. It bleeds into the very core of a woman's identity, especially in our modern world. Today's woman was raised on a diet of ambition. She was told to lean in, to build a career, to be financially independent. And many have succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. In 2023, over 40% of working mothers were the primary breadwinners for their families. One would assume this financial power would translate into more respect, a greater say in the family's direction. But the reality is often shockingly, painfully different. Suddenly, her ambition comes with a cost-benefit analysis attached. A late night at the office for him is seen as a noble sacrifice for the family's future. A late night for her is viewed as a dereliction of her duties at home. When she gets offered a major promotion that requires more travel, the first conversation isn't one of celebration, but a worried monologue from her husband about the impact on the family. Her success is treated not as a collective win, but as a problem to be managed. She finds herself in an impossible position, fighting a silent battle to be seen as more than just a support system for his dreams. She is forced to choose between her professional identity and her role as a good wife, a choice he will never have to make. When her partner, the one person who should be her biggest champion, becomes the gatekeeper of her ambition, the resentment deepens into a profound and lasting sense of betrayal. When a woman's contributions are devalued, both at home and in her career, the very foundation of the marriage begins to crumble. The emotional intimacy that once defined the relationship starts to evaporate. Do you remember the early days of dating? The long, late-night conversations that flowed like wine, where you talked about everything and nothing, feeling like you were the only two people in the world. Many women find themselves years into a marriage, desperately yearning for that connection, only to find that their entire dialogue has become transactional. It's a cold, efficient exchange of logistics. Who is picking up the kids? What's for dinner? Have the bills been paid? They've gone from lovers to roommates, from partners to co-managers of a small, complicated business. The renowned Gottman Institute calls a partner's attempts to connect bids for connection. A woman might try to make a bid, sharing a vulnerability about her stressful day. But instead of empathy, she gets a solution. He tries to fix it, failing to understand that she isn't a problem to be solved. She's a person seeking to be heard. She wants a witness to her life, not a consultant. When these bids are repeatedly ignored or mishandled, she eventually stops making them. She sees him retreat behind the blue light of his phone or emotionally shut down in a defensive posture known as stonewalling. A wall of silence descends. And there is no silence in the world louder or more crushing than the one that exists between two people who once promised to share everything. It is the unique, soul-crushing loneliness of feeling completely alone while lying right next to someone. This profound emotional distance creates a vacuum, and what rushes in to fill that void is a toxic pattern of invalidation and broken trust that can seal the fate of a marriage. It's a phenomenon where a woman's reality is constantly questioned and dismissed. Her ideas, her concerns, and her very perception of the world are treated as secondary. She proposes a family vacation spot, and he'll shoot it down. Weeks later, when his friend suggests the exact same place, it's suddenly a brilliant idea. Her insights are only deemed valid after they have been laundered through a male voice. This extends from major financial decisions to simple parenting strategies. She is living in an echo chamber of one. This feeling of being unheard is tragically compounded by a relentless pattern of unreliability. He promises to repair the leaky faucet, to attend their daughter's recital, to handle the bedtime routine so she can have a moment to herself. But she has learned not to count on it. Each broken promise, no matter how small, is another crack in the foundation of trust. It's not about the faucet, it's about the slow, agonizing erosion of her belief in his word. It's the devastating realization that she cannot depend on him for the small things, so how could she ever depend on him for the big things? Eventually, she stops asking, she stops offering her ideas. She retreats into herself because the silence is less painful than the constant sting of being dismissed. She learns to become a self-contained unit, quietly handling everything on her own. This escalating journey of resentment from the second shift to the emotional void to the constant invalidation inevitably leads to the most intimate and painful battleground of all, the bedroom. For many couples, physical intimacy is the final refuge, the place where connection can be reforged and forgiveness can be found. But for a woman simmering with years of silent resentment, the bedroom becomes just another chore, another obligation on an endless to-do list. The very act becomes a source of profound anger and alienation. The disconnect is fundamental. For him, physical release might be a way to feel close and reduce stress. But for her, feeling emotionally disconnected, devalued, and unheard all day, a physical act devoid of a real emotional foundation can feel like a violation. It's no longer a shared expression of passion between two equal partners, but a silent, one-sided transaction performed out of a sense of duty. The internal monologue becomes a desperate prayer. Let's just get this over with. Her own body becomes a source of anxiety, not pleasure. This is the ultimate, most painful manifestation of being taken for granted, where her own needs and desires are rendered completely invisible. The sanctuary has become a prison. When the home itself feels like a prison, the walls start to close in. The final stage of this journey is the slow, dawning horror that the perfect life everyone sees from the outside is, in fact, a gilded cage. This feeling is often cemented by a subtle, creeping form of emotional control that is incredibly difficult to name. It isn't overt yelling or aggression, it's the constant, low-grade criticism disguised as a joke. It's the backhanded compliment. It's amazing you can handle such a demanding job, even if the house is always a bit of a mess. It's the passive-aggressive sigh when she wants to go out with her friends. As reported by Psychology Today, this kind of subtle emotional abuse is designed, whether consciously or not, to keep her off balance, to make her question her own worth, her own sanity. This isolates her even further, especially when friends and family, who only see the charming facade, say things like, "But he's such a great guy. You're so lucky." They don't see the 1,000 tiny cuts. And so, she feels utterly and completely alone, trapped by finances, by the children, and by the social shame of admitting her perfect life is a lie. It is here, in the quiet desperation of this gilded cage, where all the resentment, loneliness, and betrayal culminate in one final, resolute decision: a way out must be found. So, that 69% statistic, it's not a mystery after all. It's the predictable, heartbreaking conclusion to a story that begins not with a suitcase by the door but with an unwashed dish in the sink. It's the cumulative weight of every empty promise, every dismissed opinion, every lonely night, and every unthanked task. The women who ultimately choose to leave are not demanding an unrealistic, fairy-tale perfection. They are yearning for a genuine partnership. They are asking for the same respect, attention, and emotional connection they so freely give. The great tragedy is not that marriages end, but that they so often die a slow death from wounds that could have been healed. The real question is not why so many women are walking away, but what it will take for our modern partnerships to evolve into places of true mutual recognition before the wall of resentment is built so high that no one can ever tear it down.